So today we're here to talk about how to use Microsoft Excel for basic statistics and some things that typically you'll be asked to find: mean, standard deviation, mode, minimum, Q1, Q2, Q3, maximum. These five guys here are your 5-number summary, and they're used to make a box plot or a modified box plot. Also going to show you how to find the IQR, the inter-quartile range. So let's start with mean. Mean is the one number or the one term that Microsoft Excel does not agree with most statistics textbooks. If you type mean into Excel, you don't get anything. That's because normal people call it an average. So you have a couple of options. One is you can press this FX button to insert a function, and you can click. You have all sorts of fun functions. You can click statistical, and you see here you've got the word average, and you can say, okay, well, it turns the average arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers or names, arrays, etc., etc. You can use that. What I prefer to do is just type it in. So I hit equals average, and it wants a list of numbers to pick from. So what I'm going to do is I have two options. One is I can click on this first number and hold it, and then drag it. Well, if I do it right, I can do it. So equals average. You have to open a parentheses, and if you click here and you drag it and then let go, it selects all those numbers, A1 through A27. Close your parentheses, hit enter. Your average is 4.96. Another way to do this is you can type equals average. This is the way I prefer to do it. And type the first number A1, put a colon, and type the last number A27. And you see it gives you this blue box around all of your numbers. The reason I like to do it that way is because if we're dealing with thousands of numbers, and you know where the first number is, and you know where the last number is, you don't have to go searching for them. You just very simply put the first number, put the last number, voila, Excel does the rest. You hit enter, and your average is 4.96. Standard deviation is very similar. You type STDEV. Now you have several formulas here. You have STDEV.P, which calculates the standard deviation of a population. If you were looking for population standard deviation, that's the formula you use. If you are looking for sample standard deviation, which is more common in statistics, you type STDEV.S. And just like mean or average, it is looking for a list of numbers. So I'm going to type A1 colon A27. That is going to find the standard deviation, the sample standard deviation, from the first number, cell A1, which is right here, to the last number, cell A27, which is right here. Really useful if you have lots and lots of numbers, because standard deviation can be very difficult to calculate by hand. If you're in my statistics class, I expect for any large set of data, you're going to use Microsoft Excel, and you're going to use the standard deviation formulas within it. Now, what if I don't like these numbers being so long? What if I want to round them? You have a couple of ways you can do that. The way I like to do it is I like to go to Format, click on Number, and then set the number of decimal places I want. 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, you can just adjust it how you please. Let's set it to 2 decimal places. Now I can right-click on this and do the same thing, or I can use the Format Painter. So click on this little paintbrush and then click on the cell, and it formats it the same. How about minimum and Q1, Q2, Q3, maximum? Q2 is also called median. These are your 5-number summary right here. And I'm going to start with Q1. So if I hit equals, and if I go quartile, okay, quartile, and you can use the old function, okay? You can use the old function, or you can use one of the new functions, okay? So either one's fine, or I'll tell you what we're going to do. Why don't I show you how to do this using the function setup? So you go here, and you can search for it statistically. It's in alphabetical order, so it's going to be in the Q's. Or if you're looking for something that you don't know how to do, you can type quartile in the search function, and it comes up with these different functions. The old quartile function is the easiest to use. It's for the older versions of Excel, and it's just the word quartile, and it says array, comma, quart. And that tells you how to set up your function. Okay. What that means, the word array means what numbers are you looking at. So for us, it'll be A1 through A27. And the second number is which quartile do you want to find. So that's how you would do it using the function button. So I'm going to go ahead and do it the old-fashioned way. Quartile, parentheses. Now, array. It wants an array. So I'm going to type A1 through A27, comma, 1. Okay? Now, a couple of things. First of all, I'm looking for the first quartile, so I put a 1 there. But Microsoft Excel is very nice, and it gives me this little hint. If you type a 1, you get the first quartile, or the 25th percentile. If you type a 2, you get the median, or the 50th percentile. If you type a 3, you get the third quartile. If you type a 0, you get the minimum quartile, the minimum value. So I'm going to be lazy. I'm going to copy this formula. And what you can do is if you just highlight this cell and you copy it and you paste it. Now you have a couple of options here, and it gives them to you. I'm just going to do a simple paste. Well, now it won't let me because it's not liking me. Let me just retype it. This is the easiest way to do it. Quartile, parentheses, A1 through A27, comma. And this time I'm going to put a 0. Okay? That's going to find the minimum value. And I can redo this over and over and over. Quartile, A1 through A27, comma, comma, 2. Okay, and every time, or I can grab this. Now if I grab this and I just do this, it copies the formula, except notice something. When I move the formula down one cell, it also moves my array down one cell. Well, you can fix that really easily. You could retype these numbers, or you can grab this box and just move it up, which is a really handy thing. The other thing is it keeps that number 2. We don't want that number 2. We want the number 3. This is typically the way I do it, is I'm lazy and I'll grab this and just drag it, and then I'll correct it. So I'll move the box up 1, and I'll change this here to a 4. Okay? So that's one way to do it. Let me do this again. I'm going to do this again. Let's say you type in your first formula and you're happy with that. Okay, so here's your formula and you're happy with it. You don't want to change it. And you know if you just grab this little corner and you drag it, what happens is this array is going to move down and it's going to mess it up, and you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to mess it up. So how do we do that? Well, one way you can do that is if you click on this. Okay, if you click on this, you can press the F4 key. Okay, what that does, if you press the F4 key with A27 highlighted, is it put dollar signs in there, or you can type the dollar signs manually. Okay, so I can go over to A1 and I can type the dollar signs manually. Okay, when you put dollar signs, what that means is when you copy this formula, those numbers will not change. So I'm going to press enter. And now when I grab this, what happens is the array stays the same. Okay, so I can grab this and I can copy it. Now, all I have to do is for Q1, change that to a 1. For Q2, change it to a 2. For Q3, change it to a 3. And for the maximum, change it to a 4. Okay, so if you put a 0, you get the minimum. If you put a 4, you get the maximum. A 1, you get Q1. A 2, you get Q2. A 3, you get Q3. So when your instructor asks you for a 5-number summary, there it is, 1, 3, 4, 7.5, 10. Pretty cool, huh? Now, the interquartile range, you can do the interquartile range manually. It's just Q3 minus Q1. It's not that hard. But what if I wanted to make Excel do it for me? Okay, what if I don't trust my arithmetic skills? So I'm going to press equals. And I want to do Q3 minus Q1. So I'm going to click on Q3 minus and click on Q1. So it's that cell in blue minus that cell in green. And I press enter. And there's the IQR. Now we all know if we want to find an outlier, it's actually 1.5 times the IQR. How do we do that? Well, we type equals 1.5 times IQR. and there's 1.5 times your IQR. So you can use Excel to do all these fun things. Now the last thing I want to cover is mode. Most of the time people try to use the mode function in Excel and they return one mode. Well, I want you to look very carefully at my data. I actually have 4 2s, I have 4 3s, and I have 4 4s. I have 3 modes. So what I want to do is I want to highlight a minimum of 3 cells, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight 5 cells. 5 cells. And I go up to the formula bar and I type equals. And you type mode.mult. Okay, mode.mult. Okay, and then you open a parentheses A1 colon A27. If you press enter right now, the first cell will show you a 2 because it is the lowest mode, and the rest of these cells will be blank. You have to press Control Shift, holding Control Shift, press enter, and notice what happens. Every cell you highlighted returns a different mode. Because these two came up as NA, that means that I only had 3 modes. So the modes are 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to go over that again. Okay, delete these. Highlight 5 cells, could be more, could be 6, could be 7, could be whatever. Highlight as many cells as you think you need. Press equals mode.mult. Mode.mult. Your first number, your last number, and before you do anything, you have to press Control Shift, hold those, and then press enter. This makes it an array, and it tells it to give the answer in array format. So if there's more than one answer, to put them in these cells. And when you run out of answers, you get NA, and I usually go back and delete those NAs, and it says I can't do that. So what that means is I'll do this and I'll find out I only have 3 modes, and then I'll redo it and I'll only highlight 3 cells the next time. Okay, so those are my modes, and I can make a nice pretty box around those or whatever I want to do. But anyway, so that's how you do that. A couple of other things to think about when you're Excel. Obviously you've got mean, standard deviation, mode, your 5-number summary here. All of these things are very, very useful. Aside from that, though, and aside from rounding these to 2 decimal places or 3 decimal places, what if I wanted the standard deviation for a population? I could do stdev.p. All of that's fine and dandy, okay? But aside from that, there's a lot of other things Excel will do, and I'm going to cover those in some later videos. But these are, those first few chapters of an intro stats course when you're asked to find these things. And when I teach this course face-to-face, I tell my students, sure, do the mean by hand. It's not that hard. Do the mode by hand. It's not that hard. Fine, do the median by hand. It's not that hard. But what about things like standard deviation? The computation for that for a 27-number data set is humongous. The great thing about Excel is I could give you a project that has thousands of numbers, and as long as you know the first and the last, you can do it. Now, what if, let me give you a couple of what ifs. What if someone were to come along and add some numbers? 11, 11, 11. Oh no, they added numbers. What do? Do I retype my numbers? No, I don't. I can go in here and I can do a couple things. My last number is at A30, so I could just change this to a 30. Okay, so I could just change this to a 30. So I could type A30 and press enter, and that fixes my mean. Another thing I could do is when you click on this formula, it shows this blue box. I could grab this bottom corner and I could drag it down, and now it fixes my problem. Same with your mode, but you want to highlight all of these cells. Don't just highlight the first one. Highlight all of these cells and then go in and change this. Okay, so if you don't highlight all of the cells, it doesn't fix your mode mult formula. Okay, you should hit enter, and it won't do that. So you have to hit Control Shift Enter, and now it'll fix it. So every time you modify an array answer, you have to hit Control Shift Enter. If you don't do Control Shift, it won't fix it. Same thing here. You change this to a 30. Okay, change that to a 30. Or again, you can click on it, and when you click on it, you can grab this corner and drag it. Okay, so you either manually type the number 30,